Marvel Rivals is a game of resources, and in this video, I'll be teaching you how to maximize the effectiveness of your abilities and create a mindset to easily dissect and determine what is happening and what will happen mid-match to more easily win team fights and win games. So some of what I'm going to explain here, fellas, may sound a little bit elementary, but we first have to lay a foundation in order to build a house. Starting at the most basic level is when all 6 members of the enemy team face off against each other. That is what is considered a team fight. So when this tank initiates against this tank and this tank fights this tank, all of these characters are looking to try to eliminate each other and gain control of the objective. A team fight usually begins with one tank on one side initiating or trying to create space against the other tank. Team fights are typically won by a series of events called win conditions, which include the following but are not limited to: eliminating more members of the enemy team than your team, forcing the enemy team into unfavorable positioning where they have to give up control of the objective, or exerting enough pressure where the other 2 scenarios I mentioned earlier must happen. Contrary to what some people may believe, a tank's primary goal is to make space for their team, and this is not as simple as just walking close to the enemy. In this situation, the opposing Thing player is playing a little bit over aggressive, so I use my charge to earthbound him, preventing him from escaping to his team with his leap. Here I had to sacrifice space to then give my team more space to operate by punishing someone who is critically out of position. Taking space is important, but taking space without being in line of sight of your support for a long period of time is one of the worst things you can do in Marvel Rivals. In most situations, you want to take up as much of the map as possible because you want to make it easier for your supports to have more angles to heal you and support you and give less space for the enemy team to operate, making it much easier for your DPS to score eliminations. If the Doctor Strange and Magneto are taking so much space from the enemy team, but the enemy team is backed up into corners or backed up into spaces where, for example, this support has to go behind a wall, or this support here has to go back into an awkward situation where this DPS can then converge on them where they're caught off by themselves. Eventually, all of these characters here are going to be put into bad positioning, and this is where a lot of team fights are won. But you see, it's not that simple. Tanks are only able to make space against the enemy team when they're enabled by supports, and the same goes for DPS players. This makes support or strategist the most important role in the entire game, as they are the anchor holding up the team. This means the best way to win a team fight is to eliminate supports first, because there is a fundamental rule that stays true in every Marvel Rivals game. It is always easier to kill a team with no or little healing than a team with both supports keeping the rest of the team alive, because a team without healing will eventually die because of the lack of healing to sustain them. This is why you'll see many higher ranked players look to find ways to force supports into bad positioning to then focus them, leading to an elimination or at the very least minimize their value. Minimizing a support's value can be as simple as you getting a support to fight you instead of healing their tank. If this Strange is over here off to the side fighting this Strange here and this Wolverine, this Strange may end up getting critical because he's fighting against a tank buster Wolverine. If, for example, your Bucky looks to then try to fight Luna Snow, Bucky is getting value by distracting Luna Snow and making her have to spend time fighting Winter Soldier over here. Luna Snow is adversely not able to heal their Strange. This then transitions us perfectly into our next segment, the phases of play. You see, before a team fight even begins, there is a phase of play traditionally called poke. In poke, members of both teams typically use long-range abilities and tactics in an attempt to eliminate the enemy before they can even have both tanks or teams meet at the objective. An elimination you get before a team fight or early in a team fight is called a pick, and is one of the simplest ways to create man advantage before a fight even begins. Of course, some heroes excel in this phase more than others based on their kits, the map, positioning, and situational advantages. For example, a Hela player may have an easier time getting a pick on Yggdrasil Path Convoy Defense compared to a Psylocke player flanking on a map like Hydra Hell's Heaven. After poke, there is the normal team fight phase. Here, all characters excel at their said kits, which are typically categorized into 3 roles: dive, brawl, and poke. Dive are characters that excel at getting into the fight, getting an elimination quickly, and exiting the fight by retreating to the back line for healing and buffs. These characters either have very fast base movement speed or have movement abilities to get in and out of the fight. Some characters in this category include Black Panther, Spider-Man, Hulk, and Venom. Brawl characters want to get into the fight and group with the rest of their team to run over the enemy with brute force and snowball their opponent as much as possible. Examples include Thor, Wolverine, The Thing, and Winter Soldier. Poke characters are long-range characters that excel at killing opponents before they even reach your tanks or your team. Poke compositions love long, drawn-out fights where they can wear out the enemy team by creating distance and forcing the enemy to run out of resources and hold strong positioning. Some characters in this category include Hawkeye, Namor, Hela, Magneto, and Punisher. Now that we have a foundational understanding of team fights and how they work, let's learn how to operate them and pick apart teams by exploiting character weaknesses. The first thing we should do in any match is identify all members of our team and the enemy team and understand what their roles are in the said team composition. The sub-roles I mentioned earlier, dive, brawl, and poke, all have a pick and counter system that generally works as follows. Poke beats brawl, dive beats poke, and brawl beats dive. And now you may be saying, Niall, what do you even mean by that? Well, let me explain how these all work. A poke character like Punisher loses to a dive character like Panther because dive is very good at closing the gap between them and the enemy very quickly while also finishing fights, not even giving poke the chance to effectively deal damage. Brawl beats dive because dive characters have to crash into the enemy, allowing Brawl to stay grouped and overrun dive with crowd control abilities and focus fire. The biggest example of this would be the Thing's Earthbound on his Yancey Street charge. Lastly, Poke beats Brawl because Brawl does not have the resources to move into the team fight fast enough without taking substantial damage from the distance between the Poke characters and them. Therefore, Poke outranges Brawl. Now there are some exceptions to this rule, such as Namor being a Poke character who excels at specifically countering dive characters with his turrets. He becomes even better at nullifying dive with the Luna team-up Ice Turret, which slows down enemies that are hit by the Ice Turret, which is one of the main drawing factors to dive being its mobility. Slowing down a dive makes it much easier to counter it. Since you made this far in the video, don't forget to follow me on Twitch. I do Marvel Rivals VOD reviews, educational streams, rank grinds, and just funny gameplay moments, all over on the Twitch, link in the description. At this point, you know positioning, sub-roles, and have a mindset of how we should be tackling every team fight. And to finish this video up, let's talk about how to apply everything we have learned through ability usage and ult tracking. What ultimates does the enemy team have? They have the Gamma team up with Hulk, Iron Man, Strange. With team-ups, usually that means that characters output more damage, which means that they'll charge ultimates faster. We've only been like, what, a few seconds into the match, and Iron Man is already sitting at 18% ult charge, which means he's going to have this ultimate quicker than normal, which also means that we need to be able to conserve and save abilities for situations where he may have his ultimate, which will be coming up pretty soon actually. Now, generally speaking, DPS characters get their ultimates first. After DPS is quickly support. Some supports will get ultimates faster than DPS depending upon how much healing output they're putting out. And one of the best ways that you can understand positioning and where you should be, can you see all 6 members of the enemy team from your position? Especially if you're on tank, this is very important for you. But here I can see 1, 2, Hulk's up there. It's kind of hard to see, but Hulk's up there. 3, and I know that there are 2 others back here. I think Iron Man's up here somewhere, but we see 2 others right here. You know you have good positioning when you can see at least 5 to 6 members of the enemy team. If you can't see them all, that means generally one person is most likely flanking or is in an odd position that makes it favorable for them to deal damage to you. So here I position myself in the back. I know that the Iron Man is looking to ult. I know that my rocket is over here, that he's going to be looking to just destroy everything in this area here, and I purposely save my shield to block the Iron Man ultimate. And the Iron Man ult comes out, block it with my bulwark curtain, I think it is, or Thanks for watching the video, fellas. I hope this video gave you strong examples of how teamfights are structured and how to navigate them. If you're looking for other ways to improve at Marvel Rivals, join my Discord server linked in the description where we talk about Marvel Rivals, and I also do Marvel Rivals coaching sessions. So go ahead and join the Discord server. Remember to learn, remember to laugh. My name is Niall, and I'll see you all next time. Peace.